Hi everyone, back again. Had a few problems yesterday with the equipment, but I want to continue the podcast. What I've been talking about is basically death. Hideous subject, we all have to face it. But I've come to the realization it's not as scary as we all think. I believe religion and various other institutions want to make it scary, to frighten us, to make us more controllable, perhaps is the word. Religion is a greater part of this. As I've said before, religion is a means and way of allowing people to come to terms with which will eventually happen to us, and gently allow them with confidence to pass on without trouble or fear of what's coming next. Difficult subject. I look at the teachings and I say they are wonderful. A lot of people get a lot of comfort from them. But in truth, they have done a lot of damage to the world as we know it. We only have to, as I say again, look at the Middle East. Religion, no matter how you look at it, the Arabs that are fighting the war over there, Syrians, whatever, the general populace, they are fighting a jihad against America, the coalition forces, so on and so forth. We are fighting them against terrorists. It's your point of view. No, it doesn't matter how you look at it. Someone's wrong, someone's right. Someone's right, someone's wrong. Yin and yang. It's just an ongoing, ever-increasing, escalating sense of violence, whereby only a few that actually profit from it, and that's the arms dealers. The military get to test out their new toys, and the unfortunate fact is that ordinary men and women have to either be on the ground and suffer the consequences of the actions of these weapons, or are led by some strange fanatical belief that their cause is right. Either side makes no sense. One is about resources, the other one is about a holy war. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to power. And then in the end, the only person that actually wins is the Undertaker. And that's the basic fact of it. Nothing changes. Doesn't matter. You're here 1 minute, gone the next. What legacy have you left? Where do you go next? And yet so many of our young people are prepared to sacrifice themselves in a belief which is not of their own, but of their states. Our cause is just. God is on our side. How many times have we heard this? It's not. It is man's words. If you were to really read the true texts of the Christian religion, you'll find that Jesus, or some of his acolytes, said God dwells within us. It is us. We are the temple of God. Not that we build these huge structures in support of God. We are God. As I've said before, we know right from wrong. And that is the most fundamental thing about life. Right and wrong. How we live our lives. If we try to live our lives correctly and honestly, trying to do little harm and not to hurt too many people, we get on. In truth, we get on well. We enjoy each other's company and our differences. We can laugh, joke, and we can even take the mickey out of each other, and it'll have no detrimental effect. But as soon as politics gets involved, and they start using religion, and it must be this and it must be that, it starts to get twisted. And then that other trait of man, hatred. Hatred for one another, hatred for a different kind. Oh, he's got a different skin. Oh, he speaks a different language. Just hatred. It's just being scared, I suppose. We don't know any different. We think we're evolved and that we've moved on from our cave-dwelling days, but I believe the only difference is we now have caves above ground. We haven't really evolved too much. We're still those same individuals, just building better and better weapons to whack the next guy over the head with. What do we gain? Nothing. How much land do we hold? Okay, we hold it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, 100 years, and then it all goes back to as it was. Nothing changes. Everything is the status quo. And yet, because of political decision, because of a few, we're forever squabbling over our little patch of earth. And what we've got and what the other guy's got. And to live totally in fear, because without that control from the politicians, we would find ourselves able to communicate with anyone, understand anybody's point of view, and this is not politically astute way of doing business. There has to be a balance, yin and yang, as they say in China. You have to have a bad guy and you have to have a good guy, but who's the bad guy and who's the good guy? Now, the banking system wouldn't work unless there's somebody somewhere losing. Someone has to lose for a bank to make a profit. And all the time, the banks are controlled by the West and in the hands of a few. So the body count will keep rising. And the ordinary person suffers. We never gain anything from the banks making a profit. Only a dividend. What's it? It's transitory. You get a dividend, you spend it on a car, you feel good for 6 weeks. What have you got? Nothing. But something, I've digressed off the subject I've started this podcast for. That is basically, I wanted to talk about death. Not in a macabre way, but in a way that makes sense. I've talked to many scientists, physicists, biochemists, you name it, anyone in the field of quantum physics and various other high-level sciences. And they have to admit that the death is a mystery. It is something that, in the laws of physics, shouldn't really exist. It is something quite bizarre, and we all have to face it. Because, in truth, what we are is pure energy. Yes, we are in cellular bodies, but every cell is held together with electromagnetic energy. They in turn are made from atoms and molecules. They in turn are held by electromagnetic energy. Our brains form neurons, photons, you name it, and are all electronic energy. And our brain has the capacity to store as much knowledge as the universe, so I've been told. Whether that is a true fact or not, I can't tell you, but I do know they can store a fantastic amount of information. So one has to wonder, where does this information go? Because if anything knows about science, or basic physics, you know that energy, no matter what type it is, transforms from one type to another. In other words, if you have heat, you also get infrared light and you get white light come from it. Those photons stream away from whatever's hot, and although we can't perceive them, we can perceive the metal or the object that's hot as red, giving away infrared light, which again are nothing more than electrons and photons, which we are able to perceive in two ways. One, we can feel the infrared heat emanating from an object coming off of whatever it is that's been heated, and two, we can perceive the light. But there are many other elements coming off of that same object which we can't see or can't perceive. But it's just a change in energy. So you can take light, put it through a prism, and you change the light into various wavelengths. They're all about change. They change into their constituent parts of the white light that you see. Each one has a wavelength. Each one has its own properties, from very modest to extremely powerful. The same applies with energy, any form of energy. Electrons, electromagnetic energy, anything. It changes. It doesn't dissipate. It doesn't go anywhere. There's only a finite amount of energy in the universe. And the universe, when we are born, gives us just a small amount to sustain us. As we grow, it increases fractionally, but we only have a small amount. But it's quantifiable. The whole universe, we can pretty much calculate how much energy there is in the universe, which is a staggering number. But we can, within 15 to 20%, and I may have those figures wrong, but talking to a physicist friend of mine, he said we're pretty accurate as to how we can quantify the mass of energy. And there is dark matter and various other things in there that can screw up the actual computations, but in the main they can get it about 75% accurate. Now, if that's the case, one has to wonder, how much energy is there? How many living creatures are there in the universe? How much energy has everybody got? What processes are taking place? You look at a star and you think, crikey, look at our own star. How much energy is in there? How long is it going to last? How much is it going to emit? It is all energy changing its form. Boiling, swirling, helium, hydrogen, forming and releasing huge amounts of magnetic energy and huge amounts of electromagnetic particles, from photons to electrons. You've only got to look at the aurora borealis just to see what streams off the sun, and you can see that the particles are being charged in our magnetic ionosphere, and they change into light, and they give us these wonderful displays of light in our northern hemispheres. Everything changes. So when we die, one has to wonder, where does our energy go? Now you can see our energy if you look through a camera that shows our aurora. Now that is a special camera that's able to see our electromagnetic energy that we emit or from our bodies. This is a constant flow of energy that we have. We interact with people, you can actually follow it and see how small tendrils of this energy can cross a room and connect with other people. It is bizarre. If you stick a boy and a girl, this tends to be mainly teenagers, and you have the aurora camera set up, you can actually watch the interaction of the boy and girl who are ignoring each other, but their electromagnetic energy is actually sending tendrils out to see, I suppose, if they are compatible. And then shortly afterwards you will actually see a secondary reaction in their emotions. The girl will look at the boy will look at the girl, or something of that nature. Or there'll be another sort of moment there that can be seen. But it is a fact that we are pure energy. We live encased in a biomechanical body. In other words, we have this body of ours. It has bones, tissue, organs and everything. And our whole function is to keep our entity, our energy, our conscious, people call it a soul, to keep that part of us functioning. The rest of it doesn't matter what you say, it is just a machine to keep our brains going and to keep the energy, that who we are, the essence of us, continuously moving forward and evolving. It is a fact that if you look at people that are perhaps not quite as intelligent as other people, although I do say that in a very liberal way, because intelligence is a matter of not so much of reading books and being going to universities, but of being able to adapt to your environment. You tend to find that there are some very intelligent people who might be considered mundane and rather boring, and because they can't talk about the classics or something of that nature. But I digress. But what you can actually see is, if you look at the Aurora camera, people who are better read, who have a higher education, and mainly in the sciences, their auroras and their energy outputs tend to be greater and far more luminescent. In other words, they tend to have the higher spectrum of colours, brighter colours, more oranges, yellows, pinks. It's quite bizarre actually as to the level of energy that is emitted from a human. On the other scale of the coin, we have people that have murdered people. We actually did a test with an Aurora camera to have a look at these people, and it would transpire that some of these people, not all of them, have a lower energy field. Now, I don't know whether that's because of what they did, or something in nature balances out, or whatever takes place, but they don't seem to have the same level of luminosity as somebody that hasn't taken either life or caused huge problems for anyone else in the world. It would seem you seem to carry your baggage. In other words, the more wrongdoing you do, the less energy you have. And I get the impression that there may be some sort of cancelling out in the final days. I believe that you must leave this place with a level of education, or let's say a level of energy. And that energy can only be acquired by learning. You have to be constantly learning, constantly evolving, pushing your mind to expand beyond the norm of what you know. You have to be able to, if you want, enlighten yourself. Be able to look at the other person's point of view. Be a little bit empathic perhaps. Take a different point of view. Empathy. Just being able to get on. Be more at one with yourself. We also found when looking through the camera that people that are religious, they tend to have a fairly bright aurora, but it's not as bright as those that are more at peace with themselves, more enlightened, more intellectually stimulated. That can be reading, it could be taking part in things, doing all sorts of things. The human body and mind is one, and it is designed for one thing and one thing only: to evolve. It is not meant to sit there and vegetate in front of a TV and watch the same old dregs dished up every week, because that is control. That is what people want to be able to do to you, to limit your ability to think outside the box and move on. People that tend to do other things, invent other things, experiment, whether it be cooking or whether it be taking a piece of copper pipe and inventing a new laser or a new engine, it makes no difference. They are pushing the frontier, pushing their minds. Human beings are meant to evolve, and you can evolve in your own lifetime. You only have to see, from a child we know very little, and then once we reach our adulthood, you suddenly see that we've evolved. We've evolved into a person, a whole person, for good or for bad. Some will take the easy route, some will take the hard route. It doesn't matter. We are evolved. We are one with ourselves. And unfortunately, sometimes we have this tendency to become fixed in that state, not wishing to move on, as it's easy. Well, I'm afraid life is not easy, but there we are. But as they say, death comes to all of us. None of us can escape it. Some of us, you could argue, it's unfortunate that some of us are killed or die early through disease and through various other things: shot, run over, accidents, skiing, parachute doesn't open, all sorts of things. Obviously, war takes the greatest number of deaths in any one time in battlefields. Some are instantly killed, others have a terrible time. And it has been through seances that this actually has been verified by the people that have spoken about their trauma as to how they passed to the next place, if you like. Some of them did not have a good time getting there. But once there, it seems that things are a little better, or a lot better, but no one escapes from what we gather. You still have to learn and evolve. And whatever you are here, if you are not enlightened enough, this is a fundamental point we've come to understand about this through doing seances, that if you are not happy with your lot here, and you are unhappy, or you are troubled in your mind, or you have problems, or you have hatred for a particular race or creed, or you do something really terrible and untoward, strap a bomb to yourself, blow yourself up, and a load of other people, and you take them, you have to live with that, from what I can gather, and you have to come to terms with that, which means when you are in the next place, although this can't be verified, you will have to deal with it. You will have to come to terms with what you've done until you become more enlightened to move on. And from what's been said, this can take millennia. In other words, you could be stuck in limbo, for want of a better word, forever, if you can't come to terms with what you've done. It's not about forgiveness, because by the time you come to be enlightened, the human race will be millennia old, moved on, probably more evolved than you are. And I've also been told that some people never come to terms. They are left behind. And it seems that we move. Our energy transfers across. We know ourselves as the being that we see. In other words, how we perceive ourselves is how we go across. In other words, how I look at myself in the mirror right now is how I would perceive myself in the next life, for want of a better word. My energy will transfer to this point, and I will see myself there. We've also been told, from what we can gather from seance, that there is no thinking that you're going to sit on a jolly cloud with harps and goodness knows what, listening to buttercups and living in a land of the free and not doing anything else, or not wanting to do anything else because you're living in a land of luxury. Afraid not, guys. That's all BS. You got to work, and probably harder than you're working here, because the next step is about it, enlightenment, moving forward. Again, energy moving forward, having to change, having to evolve to create something other than what it is. It seems that the universe is, which we are part of, is evolving itself. It is forever changing, forever manipulating whatever it is. Stars, they die, they explode. All the atomic matter and the atoms and photons, electrons, all get scattered. Then eventually parts of it clump together again. And then it restarts again, over and over again. The cycle continues. It forms another star. It forms another solar system. Then if you're lucky, the right conditions for the enzymes or something to be produced to form life on that planet. It doesn't have to be a planet similar to ours, but it is life all the same. And the evolution starts all over again. The universe trying something different, constantly evolving, constantly changing. And that is the point. We are part of it. As the universe renews itself and changes itself constantly, so are we constantly changing ourselves. It has just come recently to life about CERN being able to discover that it is a 99% probability that we live in a multiverse, not a universe. In other words, a single universe. We live in a multiverse. Now if you take that on board, that is quite deep. But it also gives us an answer. If you look at this from the birth of the universe, we have been evolving. Now, proof of this can come from your own being. If you were to sit down and go into regressive hypnosis, you have many lives before. Some of us can speak all different languages and are completely hopeless when we are not under hypnosis. And yet, I've found I can speak Latin, I can speak German. I've even found that I even know how to string a bow. To be truthful with you, I have no idea how to string a bow, but on the videotape of me in regressive hypnosis in the Middle Ages, I was a bow maker, of all things. So somewhere along the line in my ancestry, I used to make bows, and I was good at it from what I was told. Now, there are other people. There's in their genes or in their electronic or energy memory, they will actually have your information, and they will pass it down to the next generation. And again, they will travel through the universe in linear time, in other words, transferring from one universe to the next. Now, many people might consider this blasphemy, and that I'm saying you're not going to sit at the right hand of God and nothing's going to be rosy. But unfortunately, we have to look at this in a pragmatic way. One, we can regress most people through hypnotism, and you do have past lives. Two, you are made up of energy, pure energy. Three, your body is a means and way of carrying that energy around. You fuel it just by eating food, which again transfers that food that you've eaten into energy to keep the fuel going and to produce electrons, neurons, and so on and so forth to keep the body going, and allowing your mind to think, to evolve. This is who you are, this entity inside your body, inside your head, not the body. The body is just a machine, a biological machine. So here we are. Have I answered a question here? Have I given you pause for thought? I'm doing this podcast because I want to draw this subject out further. Very little is done about death and where we go. There's a lot about religion saying, okay, this is how it's going to be, you're going to die and then you're going to go to God and so on. But if you look at the real text, God said, or the person said, whoever said it, that God lays within us. Now, and in all religions, it doesn't matter which one you talk to or listen to or read about, we are in the image of God. That is explained in all texts. It makes no difference which one you read. We are in the image of God. So you only have to look at this from one stage further, that the lessons taught that God is within us makes perfect sense. And from that point, we can extrapolate that it is our energy, it is our being, if you like. We are God. Sounds arrogant, but we are. We know right from wrong. But I'm going to end here today, and I'm going to open this up for discussion, and I'm sure it's going to be very heated. I want to continue these podcasts, and I have a lot more information, and I'm going to get some very well-known theological people and some scientists to interact with us, so that you can actually physically ask questions. I'm going to try and put this together. I'm going to leave this for now, and I'm going to put it out there, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack. But please, before you do, just sit back and look and think. Think about who you are, what type of person you are. Think about the teachings of your religion. What do they say? Don't come Bible thumping saying the Bible is the Word of God. It's not. The Bible is not the Word of God. It is the Word of man, transcribed from the so-called man and Word of God. So I'm not going to say there's no God. I'm not that arrogant. But to believe there is an omnipotent being that controls everything is a little bit naive of us. I believe the universe as a whole is our mother and father, and we are its children. We are very naive and very childlike, and we squabble a lot. But it's high time we started to grow up and start to move forward and understand who we are and how we're going to take our place in the universe. Because I'm sure there's more than one life form out there, and we can't blame them if they don't come to us, because the first thing we'll do is stick them under the knife and figure out what they've got, how they got here, what guns they've got, and turn them against each other, or not, or if not them. So you can't blame them for just looking, because they must think we're a right rabble down here. But I'm going to leave you with that thought. Be at peace, be happy, love each other, and live in peace. Just try and make your days go past. Take 5 minutes for yourself and sit back and just chill. Allow life to just travel forward a few moments without you. And take that moment to reflect. Reflect on your being, your well-being, and your life. Goodbye for now.